Futon underneath the futon, mama said I couldn't eat it.
Hey, I'm T, and this is the first rocking chair special of Just Heard. This is a rocking chair special because I am on a rocking chair, and it's special because I am doing this one alone. So this format is for artists or genres where I'm a little bit more into it as a niche. So today we're going to be looking at the new album from Viagra Boys called Viagra Boys or Viagra Boys. I know nothing about Viagra Boys, but I do know that they are quite the hot new release in the kind of alt fusion genre space at the moment. And I have been in the past a big fan of bands like Black Midi, Black Country New Road, Squid, and others. And apparently there are some similarities to be drawn. I guess we'll see. This is a bit of a blind one for me. I'll go in and I'll kind of see what they're all about. Let's get into it. So this first song is called Manade of Meat.
Okay. All right. Okay. They watch TV about a man named Chandler Bing who died in a freak hot tubbing accident and spent his time drinking hot dog flavored water on a popular TV show called Tub Girls. I don't wanna pay for anything, clothes and food and drugs for free. I'm subscribed to your mom's OnlyFans.
Okay.
I spent $5 a month to get pictures of her flappy giblets. And I see that I just wanna disappear.
Okay, interesting start. So I do get the comparisons to something like Black Midi and Geordie Greep. A bit of spoken word thrown in there amid the kind of post-punk, alt-rock kind of singing. I liked that quite a bit. It wasn't quite as like crazy and weird as a Black Midi might get, like constant shifts in instrumentation and constant timing shifts and stuff like that. But it still had kind of like a bit of a we're post-punk, we're kind of experimental, but we're not unpalatable maybe to like a less seasoned listener. Super interesting. I did catch in the lyricism references to one Chandler Bing of the show Friends. A lot of like stream of consciousness. So like a lot of rambling, but it kind of did play to the theme of the song, which I guess made it fit in context. And then like yearning for being someone working, or maybe not yearning, but just comparing yourself to someone who works in a factory in the 70s, and then talking about very kind of modern obsessions like AI chatbots and OnlyFans, and mention of feet in there for feet enjoyers as well. Yeah, interesting. I think I'll have to pay a bit more attention to the instrumentation because there's a bit of like funky synth going on in there alongside the distorted guitars, drums, and all of that. But my interest is piqued. Pretty interesting. So next up on the track list, we have the Bog Body. It's like a bit of muffled brass instrument in the background. Interesting. So that was a bit more of a traditional rock structured song. By the way, I am taking notes if you see me looking down. I also have really bad handwriting, so there's a very good chance I'm going to take some notes, read them, and then be like, what the hell did I just write? Interesting kind of like throwback, like garage kind of alt rock punk instrumentation. So a lot of like kind of sloppy but intentionally like palm muted guitars there, which is interesting. I wonder what they're going to do with that sound. And if they're going to kind of lean into it and go kind of more traditional alt punk kind of sound, or if they're going to subvert expectations and like shift entirely after this song. But yeah, fairly simple riff there. Nothing too crazy going on with the instruments, but I think they kind of complement the very kind of frantic vocals from the lead singer. So I think it kind of comes together pretty well. Lyrically, I was kind of a little bit confused, and then I was like, okay, I think we're trying to paint the picture of the bog body being like a dead body in a river or something, in a bog, I guess. That would make most sense. I'm not quite sure. I guess maybe it was trying to be a bit nonsensical. I didn't really catch on to a theme, but I wasn't kind of looking at lyrics or anything. I also did notice at some point there was a brass instrument in the background that picked up, which made it feel very, very Black Midi to me when they kind of do that more traditional brass kind of breakdown in their instrumentation. Yeah, interesting song. A bit of a simpler one, but not to say that's taking away from the quality of the song. Let's move into Uno, Roman numeral number 2.
Crouton underneath the futon, mama said I couldn't eat it cause all my teeth are gone. Or maybe he's Australian, I never really listened.
Australians mentioned.
About himself. I found a crouton underneath the futon, mama said I couldn't eat it, I'll take it from Bog Body. He's my veterinarian, it bothers me.
I love this hook. Oh, man, I kind of hoped that one would keep going. That was a bit of a shorter track. That was great. It at the start, and I wrote this down, it felt to me like it was going into like a bit of a Killers direction. So the band of the Killers, not, the Kind of Criminal. And I think it was the cadence of the vocals, and it was kind of like a little bit of the instrumentation letting the vocals take center stage. And I'm a big fan of the Killers, and I kind of drew that connection in my head, which I thought was cool. I think we need some more Killers content. Man, I really liked that hook. And Australia mentioned a couple of times. Shout out to Australia. That's where I currently am. And yeah, just great hook on that one. Again, fairly simple, but they're doing a lot with just a very characterful voice, like very low register. But he seems to be able to do a few things, like get a bit gnarly and then kind of pull back and just get a bit bassy and kind of soothing almost. Yeah, I'm really liking this so far. And then lyrically, a bit of stream of consciousness, but name drop to Australia. Shout outs to my man Bogdan, who is apparently a veterinarian and a few other professions. So we learned about him, and it's always good to learn about resourceful people who have multiple lines of work. So not much else to say. I kind of do wish that one was a little bit longer, but maybe it's a bit of a transitionary track through the album. Next up, track 4, Pyramid of Health.
Stomach's nearly fried from eating cigarettes for breakfast. But
this is like country Weezer.
7 easy steps. So come on down, bring your sacrificial goat, and don't forget to stood on a mountain and I turned to dust. Little green worm said it wasn't neat enough, so it
Ooh, we got a bit of a like cool, super fuzzy, bit crushed like guitar passage there at the end. That was neat. I hope that leads into the next song. Interesting. This one kind of felt at the start a little bit like it was borrowing from like a Weezer song, but then it very quickly went like quite country rock, which I was not expecting. It almost feels like a bit of a tongue-in-cheek, I'm like a weird experimental musician that got lost somewhere in the South, and now I'm like picking up the custom and picking up the Southern drawl. Yeah, interesting. Again, like fourth song that's been quite simple instrumentally, so I'm kind of like now starting to question the Black Midi comparison, which is fine. Like, you don't have to be as crazy as black midi. But yeah, interesting that we've kind of explored this subgenre within the album, and I wonder where else it'll go. Yeah, not a ton to say there. I mean, again, kind of like telling a little bit of an absurdist story through the lyrics. So I get a bit of like an Adult Swim kind of like a little bit random, very creative world that's being portrayed here, and it's probably very intentional. We're gonna go on to the next song, "Dirty Boys."
When those dirty boys pass by, they'll scoop you up and turn you into one of them.
Nice synth line there. I love that bit at the end. Oh, I got a lot out of this track. This was an awesome track. Yeah, so lyrically, like, first thing, we get a bit more kind of world building, which I feel like this is what's kind of happening throughout the album, as we're getting a lot more kind of like snippets of random shit and like absurdist imagery and like things that don't quite fit together track by track. We do get like a bit of an image for the world that this album might take place in. So like roving street gangs and like a bit of a post-apocalyptic vibe, which is cool. I did notice like a really cool synth passage there in the background, which has been used kind of tastefully throughout the album. But yeah, good to see the use of synth in like a punk adjacent kind of music. I really like what the singer's voice did in this song. Like, he got really gnarly with it, and he got really kind of wild with it. And he went super low at a point like near the end, which was really cool. Kind of leaned into that kind of lower register, which is awesome. And then I really like towards the end, just before the little kind of Elvis Presley outro, where we got like a bunch of layered vocals doing a few different vocal passages kind of at the same time, really added a lot of depth to the instrumentation. Dirty Boys, probably one of my favorite ones of the album so far. Really cool song. I really like the rhythm that it had to it. I like the gnarliness. I like the energy that it had, and I feel like I'm getting a bit of a window into this little world here with the Viagra Boys. Next up, we've got Medicine for Horses.
By the way, I need your credit card. I need to pay a guy to get my pineal gland recalcified.
I love the layered instruments here. Kind of sounds like a mosquito. Oh shit, Medicine for Horses. That was sick. I loved how we got to see a kind of slower, more chill sound from Viagra Boys. I loved that. It was a much more kind of chill track. I really liked the slow tempo along with the kind of modulated guitar in the background. It added a bit of like I don't want to say shoegaze because it wasn't crazy like reverbed out and delayed out, but it just kind of like added a sense of distant etherealness, if that makes sense, which we haven't gotten in previous songs at all. And the female backing voice in maybe it's the chorus that comes in very briefly just to kind of support the lead singer, and it's the kind of the clearest sound and the clearest performance we've gotten from the lead singer as well, which I think adds another like really cool dimension to it. I feel like this song would do so well with like a synthwave or like a shoegazy remix, but no, even in its vanilla state. Yeah, that was really cool, and I feel like that was a great break, just like emotionally and physically for me from some of the previous tracks. Yeah, Medicine for Horses, another favorite from the album so far. I really like this side of Viagra Boys as well. I wonder if they're going to lean into this side even further, or if it's just going to get crazier. Who knows? Either is possible. Next up, we've got track 7, Water Boy.
Dude, remember that dude who looked like a raisin, dressed up to go to a party?
Okay. Degrees, and I'm outside harvesting clams. Congratulations on your new job. Remember that dude? Remember that dude? All dressed up like, you know...
That dude.
Spend all day at the nail salon. Living like this, you won't live long.
First off, shout out to the dude who looks like a raisin. We got a few mentions of the dude during the track, so credit where credit is due. We're leaning in even further into that kind of like Adult Swim world building kind of imagery, which is cool. Am I crazy for saying that this kind of felt a little bit Damon Albarn, a little bit Gorillaz? Obviously a lot more kind of fuzzy, but it kind of felt a little, maybe it's more kind of Blur. I never really listened to Blur too much, Damon Albarn's other project, but I kind of drew that comparison pretty quickly in my head. And yeah, I'm not sure if that's correct, but that's kind of what I thought of pretty quickly. Yeah, this kind of felt a bit more like a transitionary kind of mid-album track. We got a really kind of even driving drum beat, and then complemented with a steady bass line. And I feel like the vocal performance was fairly it wasn't super expressive in terms of like range. It was pretty steady, so it kind of all came together in a very kind of push the album forward, push the song forward kind of way, which is cool. A little bit less kind of memorable than the other ones for me, but maybe this is one that'll grow on me. Maybe this is one you listen to when you're running or something. All right, next up, we've got Store Policy. Bit of woodwind in there. So many dudes again. There's the brass again. Store Policy. That was fucking awesome. I really love the build in that song. So we start with a really like dirty but deep kick drum that's just driving the instrumental foundation paired with a super heavy bass. And it was just so deep and dirty. And then like the vocal delivery was like almost a little bit hip hop, dare I say, and this is the comparison that everyone makes to every alt music artist, but it was a little bit Death Grips to me in my head. Obviously not the same at all, but it was kind of giving me that flavor and that level of aggression. Yeah, and I don't want to be making Death Grips comparisons with, again, every alt artist, but that was really cool. And then the woodwinds came through with that melody, that very kind of staccato melody a little bit after. And I love the use of like a really deep bass and kick drum with like a higher, more piercing sound like a woodwind, because then it just cuts through. That was awesome. And it almost like, it started to get a little bit crazy with... I don't know anything about woodwind instruments. I'm a guitarist. I have no idea. But when you blow into the flute or whatever and you do it in like a very uneven way and you kind of get these weird like little squeals and stuff, it almost felt a little bit like a didgeridoo. Again, shout out Australia. Those outside of Australia will be like, what the fuck is a didgeridoo? It's that big long tubular instrument, which I thought was cool. We got the dudes back in the lyrics. We're talking about dudes again. Who doesn't love talking about dudes? And what I also really loved in this song is we got the different components of the instrumentation throughout the song, and then at the end we just went into like felt like solid minute or something of just everyone jamming out and kind of getting really raucous, and it was a kind of situation with that selection of instruments that you would think would get very chaotic, but it just like came together so well. Yeah, that was awesome. Probably another favorite from the album for me. Let's move into the next one. This is track 9, You Need Me, or You N33D Me.
I can make your girl stop what she's doing and turn around and watch me do my little dance.
It's an almost very like synth sounding fuzz.
Make your man stop what he's doing. It was commonplace to use bears in the Polish army.
I know this exact guy.
Another interesting fact.
Oh wow, where to start with that one? Let's start with the sounds. Very high tempo, very high energy. I really liked it. It sounded like an octave fuzz guitar where we just got like a very fuzzy rhythm, and then as soon as we went up the fretboard, we got this like really like squealy, untamed lead. It could have been like an octave synth or something as well, but usually what happens with guitars is when you use an octave fuzz and you get a bit crazy with it, it can almost sound a bit like a synth. I thought that was really cool. And I think some other synth sounds also came through towards the end as well. Yeah, just like stellar instrumentation. Nothing really went crazy for me with the instrumentation outside of that octave fuzz. But I mentioned this during the song. I love the lyrical content of this song because it paints such a vivid picture. And I don't know about you guys, but I know a few of this exact guy, and I've met them in my life where it's a bit of like a socially awkward, like not super socially aware guy who's maybe like a little bit too online, maybe has researched a little bit too much into World War II and almost comes off a little bit scary, and then gets like a little bit obsessive and creepy when it comes to romantic pursuits. Yeah, I love how like accurately that image is painted in my head, because if you know, you know. If you've spoken to this guy before, you know exactly what it's like. And the line of like, I could drink 50 beers or 25, depending on the can. That's such a brag that you would hear from that kind of person, where it would like start absurd and then it would just get so hyper specific with all of these qualifiers. Yeah, that's super cool. I never thought I would encounter this guy in a song or in an album, but I guess Viagra Boys has given me something that really speaks to the heart, right? That was cool. We're getting towards the end of the album. Next up is Best in Show Part 4. Maybe this is a continuation of a Best in Show track from a previous album. I'm not sure, but we'll go in blind and we'll see what it is.
I floated down a black river into an ancient structure resembling Skeletor's lair. I got monkey
Shout out
parts in the
Skeletor.
90s and I was sent to an institution.
That was super cool. That makes me wonder what Best in Show parts 1 through 3 were like, if there are any. Wow, yeah, that was a journey. So, I mean, we learned about the Shadow Man, which, when you learn about the Shadow Man, you've got to acknowledge it. Just a bunch more kind of interesting, but also nonsensical, but also like intentionally nonsensical world building. which is nice. Some really cool things in the instrumentation. So throughout the song, we started with some hand drums, which kind of felt a little bit more kind of stripped back, a little bit like almost tribal, which made sense with a bit of the lyrical content that we got through in the song. But yeah, hand drums and then like a very do 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 kind of like steady and fairly familiar bass line. And the bass line, and I think even the drums carried through the entire song. But as we were moving through the song, we were getting like screaming voices occasionally. But what felt particularly strange and also cool is that some of these voices felt like they were blending and like turning into brass and towards the end woodwind instruments. Or maybe it was the other way around. It was like brass or woodwind that was being manipulated to sound like voices. But that was really cool. That just made it feel like a very kind of progressive states of delirium or states of like insanity kind of song. And I really like, again, kind of similar to one of the previous songs where we kind of explode into a bit of a jam session towards the end. And then slowly we strip back the instruments until we get like the guitar, we get a little bit of woodwind, and I think we still get the drums towards the end. So it almost kind of feels like we're going through like a dream state or like an acid trip kind of experience, and then coming out of it towards the end and kind of like facing reality a little bit, but it's still carrying through. Yeah, that was super cool. I guess that makes me also think as we go into River King, are we going to start stripped back again, or are we gonna start pretty crazy? It is the last song of the album, so maybe they're gonna. Okay.
Sitting in your room, playing video games all day.
Some like background chatter, like ambience.
Slowly.
Wow. Okay. I was not expecting to go in that direction on this album. That was a very almost like Angel on a Satellite, Magdalena Bay's Imaginal Disc. If you know, you know. If you've watched the video, shout out to you. If not, go and watch our listen to Magdalena Bay's Imaginal Disc. Kind of a very stripped back song after a crazy album. It's very stark in terms of the contrast, but also maybe it's kind of what we needed after all of that craziness. That being said, just knowing where we've been throughout the album and knowing how like crazy the instrumentation has gotten in previous songs, it almost feels a little bit tongue-in-cheek to pull like a piano ballad in the context of this album. But nonetheless, like that was really nice to listen to. Lyrically, it felt like we kind of got a bit more real world with the imagery rather than a lot of the kind of like semi-fantasy, like acid trippy stuff that we were getting throughout the album. So maybe it's like a let's sit down and chat honestly about how I feel rather than kind of using innuendo and imagery to mask everything. So we did get a bit more of like a traditional love songy kind of song. And I'd have to dive into the lyrics to see if there's like double meanings and stuff that I'm not picking up on. But yeah, really interesting that we would end on a song like that. I did notice also, so the piano was going throughout the whole song. We got a bit of accompaniment with the brass instrumentation. And then also what made it feel, once again, very grounded and very real world was that kind of ambient, like at a restaurant backing sounds. It blended in really well with the lyrical content and the instrumentation. Made me feel a bit more chilled out than I thought I would feel at the end of this album. But nonetheless, that was pretty cool. So I guess that brings us to the end of the album. I've just heard Viagra Boys, Viagra aboys, or Viagra Boys, and that was a neat introduction to this band. I'd never really listened to them before. I kind of knew about them a little bit, but I wasn't really sure quite what to expect going in, and I think I've been quite pleasantly surprised. I am actually quite relieved that they didn't really super lean into like a really raucous, crazy, complex sound like a Black Midi would, or like a kind of the same thing but with more traditional instrumentation like a Black Country New Road would. I like that they were kind of keeping it simple where appropriate, but also inserting their like unique, crazy imagery throughout the album. I guess this kind of means I have to go back and listen to some of the Viagra Boys discography because I am quite intrigued. Overall, this was a really neat album. Some really great, funky tracks. Some favorites. I mean, ending on River King. I thought River King was cool. Best in Show was really neat. I really liked the lyrics in You Need Me. There was a few others that I'm forgetting the name of. I think Medicine for Horses was also a really outstanding one for me as well. Maybe it kind of... The trend is I'm enjoying a lot more of the mellow, chill songs and also the lyrically interesting or familiar songs to me. I also noticed again like a bit of a Weezer sound in there, a bit of a Killers sound in there, a bit of a Gorillaz sound in there, which I will take at any opportunity myself. So I guess is the part where I tell you to subscribe and engage with the videos, because that is what a good, responsible YouTube channel will tell you. And also, it keeps us motivated to continue the recordings. So with that, this has been Just Heard. This has been Viagra Boys. Till next time.